What if the only thing standing between you and money is your programming? Not your job, not your luck, not your background, your mind. For the next 7 days, you're going to challenge the beliefs that silently repel opportunities, delay success, and keep you playing small. This isn't motivation, it's mental rewiring. Because when your thoughts change, your actions change. And when your actions change, your money and opportunities start showing up in ways you never expected. Give me 7 days, and you may never think the same again. Most people move through life believing their financial situation is caused by circumstances, the economy, their job, their connections, or simple luck. But beneath all of that sits something far more powerful and far more invisible. The beliefs you formed about money long before you ever tried to earn it. These beliefs were not consciously chosen. They were absorbed. From conversations at home, from what you saw growing up, from society, from moments of failure that quietly shaped your expectations. You may say you want wealth, freedom, and opportunity, but your mind might still be running old scripts that whisper the opposite. Scripts like money is difficult, success is stressful, rich people are different, I'm not ready yet, I always miss chances. These thoughts rarely shout. They operate in the background, guiding decisions, hesitation, risk tolerance, and even what you believe is possible for you. The first step in any transformation is awareness. Not action, not strategy, awareness. Because you cannot change what you cannot see. When you begin paying attention to your reactions around money, how you feel when you see someone succeed, how you talk about prices, how quickly you assume something is not for you, you start noticing patterns. And patterns reveal programming. You might notice discomfort when thinking big, guilt when earning more, fear when opportunities appear. These emotions are not random. They are signals pointing toward beliefs that were installed without your permission. Many people try to fix their financial life while protecting these beliefs, and that creates an invisible ceiling. Effort increases, but results stay familiar. Awareness breaks that cycle. Instead of judging yourself, you observe. Instead of saying, "This is just how I am," you begin asking, "Where did this come from?" That question alone creates space between you and the belief. And in that space, change becomes possible. You start realizing that some thoughts are inherited, not truth. That hesitation is learned, not destiny. That your mind has been trying to keep you safe, not successful. Safety prefers the known, even when the known is limitation. So your brain repeats familiar financial experiences because familiarity feels like control. Once you see this, something powerful happens. You stop fighting yourself and start understanding yourself. You recognize that attracting opportunities is not about becoming someone new overnight. It's about removing the filters that prevented you from seeing and acting on opportunities that were already there. But awareness alone is not enough. Because the mind doesn't just hold beliefs, it repeats them. And repetition creates identity. Throughout the day, there is a voice narrating your life. Sometimes it encourages you, but often it predicts failure before anything begins. It comments on your ability, your chances, your worth, your timing. This inner dialogue shapes behavior more than any external advice ever could. If the voice says something is pointless, effort drops. If the voice says you're behind, urgency turns into anxiety. If the voice says you're not capable, you stop noticing possibilities. Negative self-talk is not dramatic most of the time. It's subtle, casual, automatic. Phrases like "I can't," "I'm bad at this," "this never works for me," "people like me don't succeed here." Each sentence may feel harmless, but together they create a mental environment where opportunity struggles to survive. Your brain is designed for efficiency. It believes what it hears repeatedly, especially when the voice is your own. Over time, these statements stop sounding like opinions and start feeling like facts. And when something feels like a fact, you don't question it. You build your life around it. Interrupting this pattern is one of the most important moments in reprogramming. Not by forcing fake positivity, but by becoming conscious of the narration. You begin catching the sentence mid-thought. You notice the prediction before it becomes a decision. That pause weakens the automatic loop. Instead of letting the mind finish the old script, you introduce possibility. Not unrealistic confidence, but openness. Maybe I can learn this. Maybe this attempt will be different. Maybe I'm improving. These small shifts change the emotional tone of action. And emotion determines consistency. Negative self-talk drains energy before effort even begins. It makes small challenges feel like proof of limitation. It turns delays into identity statements. But when you change the way you speak to yourself, you change how long you stay in the process. Persistence increases not because you became tougher, but because you became less hostile toward your own growth. Your mind is always listening. The words you repeat become instructions. If you constantly describe life as difficult, your brain searches for evidence. If you describe yourself as someone learning, adapting, and improving, your brain searches for progress. Attention follows language. This doesn't mean challenges disappear. It means they stop defining you. Failure becomes feedback instead of confirmation. Effort becomes investment instead of struggle. Opportunities become experiments instead of pressure. The shift is quiet at first. You may still feel doubt, but you don't automatically obey it. You may still hear the old voice, but it loses authority. Over days, this creates emotional space, and space allows new behavior. You try things you would have avoided. You stay longer in uncomfortable growth. You notice chances that previously looked irrelevant. Reprogramming is not a single breakthrough moment. It's the gradual replacement of automatic thoughts. Awareness shows you the old blueprint. Interrupting negative self-talk prevents it from rebuilding itself. Together, they create the foundation for everything that follows. Because money and opportunities rarely respond to desperation. They respond to clarity, action, and belief stability. And belief stability is built internally through what you notice and what you repeat. When you become aware of your hidden beliefs and start reshaping your inner dialogue, you are not just thinking differently. You are changing what your brain expects, and expectation influences perception. You begin seeing doors where you once saw walls. You begin acting before certainty. You begin trusting progress before proof. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a version of your life where things work out. Not perfectly, not magically, but consistently. You handle challenges with confidence. You notice opportunities faster. You take action without overthinking every step. That image may feel distant, but your brain is already responding to it. The mind is constantly rehearsing the future, whether you realize it or not. Most people rehearse worst-case scenarios. They imagine failure, rejection, delay, embarrassment. And because the brain treats repeated imagination as familiar experience, those outcomes begin to feel likely. Hesitation grows. Risk feels dangerous. Action slows down. But the same mechanism can work in your favor. When you deliberately picture yourself succeeding, finishing the task, speaking confidently, receiving the opportunity, solving the problem, you reduce the emotional shock when those moments arrive in real life. The brain prefers familiarity. Visualization creates familiarity before reality appears. This is not about daydreaming without effort. It is about mental rehearsal. Athletes do it. Performers do it. High achievers across different fields repeatedly imagine execution, not just results. They see themselves navigating obstacles, adjusting, staying calm, continuing forward. That mental practice builds emotional stability. And emotional stability allows consistent action. Your brain does not need perfect detail. It needs repetition and feeling. When you see yourself making progress, even in imagination, you begin shifting from doubt to expectation. Small actions stop feeling like risks and start feeling like steps. Opportunities stop feeling intimidating and start feeling aligned with who you are becoming. Visualization changes what your nervous system considers normal. If your mind is only familiar with struggle, success feels suspicious. If your mind becomes familiar with progress, progress feels natural. This subtle shift affects decisions you don't even notice. the email you send, the idea you share, the chance you take before you feel fully ready. Over time, the image you repeat begins influencing your posture, your tone, your persistence. You don't wait for confidence as much because your brain has already experienced versions of the outcome. Action becomes less about courage and more about continuation. But imagination alone does not transform identity. Many people picture a better life while still seeing themselves as the same person who cannot reach it. That gap creates frustration. Because the real shift happens when you stop only visualizing results and start visualizing yourself differently. Most goals fail at the identity level. You may want more income, more freedom, more recognition, but if you still see yourself as someone who struggles, delays, or stays small, your behavior quietly protects that identity. The mind is wired for consistency. It would rather keep a familiar identity than achieve unfamiliar success. So the change begins with a simple but powerful question. Who is the person that naturally attracts the opportunities I want? Not what they have, how they think, how they respond, how they decide. This person is not fearless. They are responsive. They move before certainty. They treat mistakes as part of movement, not signs to stop. When you start adopting that perspective, you stop chasing outcomes and start practicing being. Instead of asking, "Will this work?" you ask, "What would the version of me who grows do next?" That question bypasses overthinking and connects behavior to identity. Identity shifts through evidence, but evidence begins with permission. You allow yourself to act slightly ahead of your old self-image. You speak once before you feel ready. You try once before you feel qualified. You stay once when you would normally quit. Each action becomes proof that your identity is flexible. This is where many people misunderstand transformation. They wait to feel different before acting different. But identity is built in reverse. Action first, interpretation second. You do something new, and your brain updates the story about who you are. At first, the shift feels fragile. Old thoughts return. Doubt questions the change. But repetition strengthens identity the same way repetition once strengthened limitation. Small moments accumulate, finishing tasks, handling discomfort, noticing progress, and your mind begins adjusting expectations. You no longer see success as something other people experience. You start seeing it as something you participate in. Opportunities stop looking like pressure and start looking like responsibility. Effort stops feeling like proof that you're lacking and starts feeling like proof that you're evolving. The identity that attracts opportunities is not built on constant motivation. It's built on reliability, showing up when excitement fades, continuing when results are delayed, trusting that growth is happening even when it's not visible yet. That reliability sends a powerful signal to your brain: this is who I am now. And once identity shifts, decisions simplify. You don't debate every step because your direction feels consistent with your self-image. You don't rely on mood because behavior reflects belief. You don't chase every opportunity because you recognize the ones aligned with your path. Visualization prepares the mind to see possibility. Identity shift prepares the mind to act on it. Together, they close the gap between wanting change and living it. The future stops feeling like a distant hope and starts feeling like a direction you're already moving toward. You begin to understand that attracting opportunities is not about forcing life to respond. It's about becoming someone who recognizes, accepts, and moves with those opportunities when they appear. And that process starts internally, long before the external results arrive. Progress rarely begins with dramatic breakthroughs. It begins with small, almost unnoticeable actions that most people underestimate. The mind is constantly looking for evidence about who you are, and it does not require massive success to update that story. It only requires consistency. Many people wait for confidence before they act. They believe once they feel ready, disciplined, or motivated, they will start moving. But confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a byproduct. The brain builds confidence through proof, and proof comes from action, even tiny action. When you complete something small, your mind registers completion. That signal matters more than intensity. A short focused effort, a message sent, a skill practiced for a few minutes, a decision made without endless delay, these moments create momentum. They tell your brain that movement is happening. And movement reduces resistance. Small wins are powerful because they are repeatable. Big bursts of motivation often collapse under pressure, but small actions survive busy days, low energy, and uncertainty. Over time, repetition turns effort into habit, and habit reduces the need for willpower. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. There is also a psychological shift that occurs when you keep promises to yourself, no matter how small they seem. Self-trust grows. You stop negotiating with procrastination as often. You begin seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That identity quietly changes how you approach bigger opportunities. The mind measures progress emotionally, not mathematically. Even if the step is tiny, completion creates relief and a sense of direction. Without that feeling, goals remain abstract and overwhelming. Many people are not stuck because they lack ability. They are stuck because their brain has little recent evidence that progress is real. Micro-action solves that. Instead of asking, "How do I change my life?" you ask, "What is the smallest step that moves me forward today?" That question removes pressure while preserving direction. It keeps you engaged with the process instead of waiting for perfect conditions. Over days, these small steps accumulate into something meaningful. Skills improve. Speed increases. Fear decreases. What once required effort begins requiring less thought. And when a larger opportunity appears, you are not starting from zero, you are continuing momentum that already exists. Momentum is magnetic. People notice reliability. Opportunities often go to those who demonstrate consistent movement, not those who talk about potential. Consistency signals readiness. It shows that if something is given to you, you will do something with it. But action alone is not enough if your emotional state constantly contradicts your direction. Many people work hard while feeling anxious, doubtful, or undeserving. That internal conflict creates friction. You move forward physically while pulling back emotionally, and that tension is exhausting. Your emotional state communicates expectation. It influences how you interpret events, how long you persist, and how open you are to receiving support, recognition, or reward. If effort is paired with fear, every delay feels like confirmation that something is wrong. If effort is paired with trust, delays feel temporary. Learning to align emotion with direction does not mean forcing constant positivity. It means practicing feelings that support continuation, gratitude for progress, curiosity about outcomes, patience with timing. These emotions calm the nervous system and make persistence sustainable. Gratitude, in particular, shifts focus from absence to movement. When you acknowledge what is improving, even slightly, your brain becomes more sensitive to opportunity signals. You notice resources, connections, and ideas that were previously filtered out by stress. Attention changes perception. Excitement plays a different role. It energizes action, but it must be grounded. Instead of excitement about distant results, it helps to feel excitement about participation. The fact that you are building something, learning something, evolving. This type of excitement is stable because it does not depend on immediate outcomes. Certainty grows slowly, and it grows from repetition. Each time you act and regulate your emotional response, instead of reacting impulsively, you teach your nervous system that growth is safe. Safety reduces self-sabotage. You stop abandoning progress at the first sign of discomfort. Emotional alignment also affects how you receive success. Some people reach opportunities but feel uneasy holding them. They downplay achievements, delay decisions, or create new problems because the feeling of having more is unfamiliar. Practicing positive emotional states before results arrive prepares you to sustain them when they do. Feeling ready is often a learned experience. When your body becomes familiar with gratitude, calm focus, and quiet confidence, success stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like responsibility. You don't rush to prove yourself as much. You focus on continuing the process that brought you there. The combination of small action and emotional alignment creates stability. Action provides evidence. Emotion provides energy. Without action, emotion becomes wishful thinking. Without supportive emotion, action becomes burnout. Together, they form a cycle that reinforces progress. You begin doing less dramatic effort and more consistent effort. You stop chasing intensity and start valuing continuity. Opportunities respond to that stability because stability suggests longevity. It suggests you will remain when excitement fades, when results fluctuate, when challenges appear. Over time, you realize that transformation is not built on rare heroic moments. It is built on ordinary days repeated differently, small steps completed, supportive emotions practiced, self-trust strengthened. The distance between where you are and where you want to be starts shrinking not through force, but through persistence that feels sustainable. And when persistence becomes natural, opportunities no longer feel like interruptions. They feel like the next logical step in a direction you have been quietly moving toward all along. Change becomes difficult not because people lack discipline, but because their environment constantly reinforces the version of themselves they are trying to outgrow. Every day, your mind absorbs signals, conversations, content, routines, expectations. These signals shape what feels normal, and what feels normal quietly shapes behavior. If you are surrounded by doubt, distraction, negativity, or limitation, even strong motivation begins to fade. Not instantly, but gradually. The brain is designed to conserve energy, so it follows the path that requires the least resistance. Your environment often defines that path before you consciously choose it. This is why transformation is not only an internal process, it is also structural. What you see repeatedly becomes believable. What you hear repeatedly becomes familiar. What you engage with repeatedly becomes identity reinforcement. Without realizing it, you mirror the emotional tone and standards around you. Resetting your environment does not mean changing everything overnight. It begins with awareness of inputs. The content you consume in the morning influences your focus. The people you listen to influence your expectations. The spaces you spend time in influence your energy and attention. Small adjustments in these areas create disproportionate impact. When you reduce exposure to constant negativity, your mind gains clarity. When you introduce information that expands possibility, your brain starts generating new ideas automatically. Inspiration is often not created internally. It is triggered by what you interact with externally. This applies to digital environments as much as physical ones. The messages you scroll through, the voices you follow, the narratives you repeat, all of these shape belief systems. If your daily feed emphasizes scarcity, comparison, and fear, your nervous system stays alert instead of creative. But when your inputs highlight growth, solutions, and progress, your attention shifts toward action. Environment also includes structure. Visual reminders of your direction, simplified routines, reduced friction for productive behavior. These small changes make consistency easier. When the desired action is convenient, you rely less on motivation. When distraction is convenient, you rely more on willpower. Most people try to strengthen willpower when they could simply redesign friction. Another powerful aspect of environment is proximity to people who are moving forward. Not perfect people, not constantly successful people, but people who are engaged in growth. Their behavior normalizes effort. Their conversations normalize possibility. Being around movement reduces the fear of starting. Protecting your mind is not isolation. It is selection. You choose what deserves repetition in your awareness because repetition builds belief. And belief guides action long after motivation disappears. The more your environment supports your direction, the less internal conflict you experience. But even with supportive surroundings, transformation depends on one principle that many underestimate: repetition over time. The brain does not change because of a single insight. It changes because patterns are practiced until they become automatic. Consistency is often misunderstood as intensity. People push hard for short periods, expecting permanent change, then feel discouraged when old habits return. But the mind values familiarity more than enthusiasm. If a new behavior appears occasionally, the brain treats it as temporary. If it appears regularly, the brain begins updating its default settings. Repetition reduces decision fatigue. Actions that once required effort begin requiring less thought. Emotional reactions stabilize. Resistance decreases not because challenges disappear, but because the behavior is no longer new. Familiarity creates comfort, and comfort sustains continuation. There is also an identity shift hidden inside consistency. Each time you repeat a supportive action, you send a signal, "This is what I do." Over time, that becomes, "This is who I am." The difference is subtle but powerful. Behavior attached to identity lasts longer than behavior attached to motivation. Many people stop just before this shift occurs. They practice long enough to see some progress, but not long enough for the behavior to feel natural. This creates the illusion that change is temporary when, in reality, it was incomplete. The brain was still negotiating instead of accepting. Consistency does not require perfection. Missed days do not erase progress. What matters is returning. Returning teaches the brain resilience. It communicates that the direction remains the same even when execution fluctuates. That stability strengthens trust in yourself. Over time, repetition builds a new baseline. Thoughts change first in moments, then in patterns. Emotional responses shift from reaction to awareness. Actions that once felt uncomfortable become standard. You stop noticing the effort because the behavior integrates into daily life. This is where real transformation becomes visible. Not in dramatic announcements, but in subtle normalcy. You think differently without forcing it. You act sooner without overanalyzing. You recover faster from setbacks. Opportunities feel less intimidating because your baseline has changed. The combination of supportive environment and consistent repetition creates momentum that sustains itself. You rely less on inspiration because structure carries you. You rely less on external validation because identity provides direction. Progress stops feeling fragile and starts feeling stable. Eventually, you realize that change was never about one powerful moment. It was about many small moments repeated in the right direction. Protecting what enters your mind and repeating behaviors that reflect who you are becoming. These are the quiet forces that reshape your future. And once a new default is formed, opportunities do not appear as surprises. They appear as natural extensions of the person you have practiced being, day after day, until growth became familiar.